Hey, it's Kim Howerton. Nice to be here with you on the live today. Uh, is it the last day in April or the second to last day in April? I don't, there's like a rhyme. I do the knuckles. You guys know the knuckle trick, January, February, March, April. It's the last day of April. So I'm glad to be. I guess I knew May had 31 days. So I guess I could have figured that one out. There's always a trick though. All right. Well, welcome to today's live. Today, what am I drinking? I have a zero sugar uh, kombucha blood orange flavor, which I think is the best flavor. I'll try not to get too burpy on the stream. That's never good. And I'm leaning into the like loose, cool weight tops this summer. I feel like rolled up at the sleeve. I don't know. Little style change, a little something. We'll see if it sticks or not. It's a little shorty, like it's not a tuck in, it's a hangout. Like it's cropped, not belly bearing cropped, like hip level. Anyway, I don't know. I'm debating. Is it too middle age chic or not? I don't know. I am middle aged. I am definitely middle aged. So I'm in the middle third for sure. So anyway, I'm really reckoning with the thing that is perimenopause, right? Like this time period where up is down and down is up, and is that like, why is my hair falling out and what is happening and why do I feel, am I going losing my mind, or is it hormones? Right? It's a time indeed. And so I'm wrestling with all those things, and it's challenging, to lean into as a topic in your own life, because it really uh one day you're up, the next day you're down. It's the way it goes. Anyway, so hey Jujubee, you're purging your closet of the too big clothes. That is fabulous. I appreciate that as a concept. I think that is definitely what one should do when they no longer fit. I like to keep the comfies. I have one like flannel, a black and white flannel that I turned into a bathrobe. That like used to be just a shirt you throw over like when you're a little cold. Now it's a bathrobe. It's sort of sentimental in that way, but otherwise, yeah, they gotta go. They gotta go. The clothes that are way too big, because the reality is, um, I have a friend who lost a bunch of weight, and I remember this conversation with her, so I'm using this story. She lost a bunch of weight and was kind of bummed. She had some like old favorite larger size pants. Sorry, I've got an itch. She had an old favorite larger size pant, and um, she was kind of like sad to let them go. She's like, "Oh, these were really good pants for me. I really like these pants." And she lost the weight and then regained the weight, and she's like, "Oh, I can wear my old pants that I love so much." And how she like the weight regain didn't quite come back in exactly the same place, and she's like, "These pants," the back at her old weight, she's like, "These pants don't look good on me anymore, even though they used to look good." And it was just a reminder, right? That like some people, well, I think it's a discussion, like, do you keep the clothes in case you regain the weight? And for a lot of people, that's a crutch that I think is good to let go of, because you don't want to regain the weight, and it's not like the clothes, they kind of give you a little bit of permission for that. But I'm not against it from that perspective so much. But who you're going to be in a couple of years from now, it's probably not the person you were a couple of years ago. And clothes you can find clothes. So it's a good idea. Make your closet feel good, make your life feel streamlined, um, and have that experience of letting things go. Yeah, Joe Jujubee says I have one size 24 jeans currently at a 12. Wow. Yeah, yeah, I mean, if you wanna keep one for an occasional photo op, like, "Look how far I've come," that's one thing, put it in an attic or something. But yeah, your closet should, all the clothes hanging in your closet should fit you. That's just a reality. Karen says, "Do you ever," I say that as an ex-closet organizer. That was my job. I was a closet designer, but organizing goes along with that. So yeah, don't don't have a bunch of clothes in your closet that are the wrong size. That's No, don't do that. It's a daily, it's like You know that little like halo of bugs and confusion that follows Pigpen around, right? In Peanuts, right? You don't want that in your closet. You don't need that mess. Get rid of the mess. Streamline, go to what actually fits you. Um, Karen says, "Do you ever eat any sugar and anymore or no sugar?" Well, that is a great question, and I am indeed have a zero sugar kombucha here. I am not sponsored, but it has allulose in it as an alternative sugar. Look, I'll eat sugar. Whoa, right? Crazy. I'll eat a little sugar. Like, ate fruit now, and fruit definitely sugar. Um, will I ever eat any refined sugar? Sure. I don't try and eat, I try not to eat very much of it. Um, but I'm metabolically flexible, as they say. I could have like a piece of dessert or something, and it not have a horrendous impact on my blood sugar or my health. But it does have an impact on my food choices, right? I mean, that sounds dumb. Food choices impact food choices, but for me, it's a bit of a slippery slope around what a healthy diet should look like for me. And I now allow 10% fun food, right? Like, if I'm going to a party, am I going to like interrogate the host about what they put in the barbecue sauce that's basted the ribs that they put on the barbecue? I am not going to do that. I'm going to eat the ribs. Right? Am I going like those little things? And so yes, there's probably sugar in that, and there's probably a little sugar in this other thing. And so, you know, I try and be real transparent with you guys. I'm not zero sugar. However, 90% of my food choices are not sugar, right? Or more than that. But 90% of the time, it's steak and vegetables and fresh fruit. I include that for me, not for everybody, for me. Um, and some of you, I'm not saying only me, just me, I'm special. No, but like because of my health, I can include, like, I'm not a diabetic, right? Um, but it's whole foods, right? Refined sugar, not a whole food. Do I ever eat refined foods? Yes, sometimes, but it has to be a small portion of my diet. And if I find that portion growing, right? It's like a little, like in my little pie chart, it's the a teeny sliver is fun food, right? I mean, I know that's a stupid thing to call it. Non-nutritive food, right? Food that's not based in a nutritional decision. Uh, and if that wedge starts to grow, I have to start having some honest conversations with myself, because it is so easy for your diet to go back to a chocolate croissant for breakfast when you're running out to Starbucks, right? Like, this is how I think a lot of people out there eat, and if I, like, didn't think about food, this might be the way I would eat, right? And then I would get, like, fast food for lunch, or even if we're thinking, like, sorta healthy, right? Like a sandwich for lunch, and then at dinner, maybe I would have, like, a stir fry with some rice, right? And by the end of that day, which is, I think, to most people, not that unhealthy a day, but those carbier choices that I've included in there, and there'd probably be like an afternoon cookie, let's be honest, right? Um, it would wedge out. It would it would elbow out room for more nutritious foods I could be choosing to eat. And um so now for me, in maintenance, basically, like, I talk about wanting to lose an extra 10 pounds, but I'm back and forth in the past few years from like maintenance to like maybe a short attempt to lose a couple of pounds and back to maintenance. And so in this phase where I'm metabolically healthy, I'm, weight healthy, I'm not obese, all those things have lined up for many years now. Um, I can make slightly different choices than I could when I was class 2 obese and more, which is what they used to call morbid obesity, but they don't use that term anymore because it's a term. Anyway, so but like fairly obese to where I am now, dear, like I've had to make different choices on the way, and I'm sure that's true of you. There are so if your question was about my life, but, if your question would be out there in the world, how do you choose whether you include any sugar or not? I think that's kind of a question we could get into, how you make those decisions. And I think there are like different strata, right? Like the first one is, I kind of look at it similar to like seed oils in a way, right? I don't buy seed oils. There is no vegetable oil in my house. I don't buy margarine. I buy butter and I buy avocado oil and well, there's an oil I buy called Zero Acre. That's what I'm using most of the time now. And it's a cultured oil, but it's primarily a monounsaturated oil with a very high heat point. And so I use whole fats. I don't use hydrogenated fats. I don't use high omega-6 fats, right? But if I'm going to a restaurant, I'm going to assume that's what they're cooking with, right? If I like when I choose my meal in a restaurant, I'm not necessarily going to choose the like dish that I know is cooked with a very sweet sauce with a lot of sugar in it. But I'm gonna think it's possible there's a little that they put a teaspoon of sugar in this, a lot of sauce to make a sauce, a pan sauce or something to balance the flavors. It's such a small amount, I'm not gonna worry about it. So like that's like to me like a certain level of acceptance of sugar. And then like or sausage. Most sausage has sugar in it. Now you can go real far out of your way to find sausage without sugar. It exists, and I support people who want to go there. But for the stupid program, when I put my hands on screen, does celebrations. Sorry, I'm expressive, people. I'm not anyway. Um, so I'm trying to keep my hands down. So, but I'll eat sausage from McDonald's, right? Like to me, a good choice might not. I can't actually think of the last time I did that. But if I was in the middle of a food desert, I was on a road trip and it was breakfast, and I needed to grab some breakfast, and I got a couple of round eggs from McDonald's and a couple pieces of sausage from McDonald's, and I know there's a little bit of sugar in there. Am I gonna freak out about that? No, I am not. I am not. Or if I go to like somebody's house and there's, they're doing brunch and they made some sausage. Am I going to eat the sausage? Yes, I'm going to eat like, and yes, there's a little sugar in there. I'm not going to freak out. So that to me is like level one. There's like a whole nother level when you're like, yes, I will have a piece of cake, right? That's like a whole 4 steps down the road. And I think most people who are on a journey where they're dealing with food addiction, where they're dealing with being metabolically unhealthy, you probably want to stop short of that. But there are steps along the way where you're like, I'm not going to worry about that. And if that works for you, I don't think the damage is not done by the small amount of sugar in your sausage. I don't know. People, you can disagree with me. Um, but I have certainly spent when I can find sugar-free sausage or something where they've specifically made a product for the sugar-free market, I tend to buy it. And honestly, the reason I buy it is I want to support that practice. I want to support more people making products with allulose or stevia or just no, like leaving it all out altogether when it doesn't need it. I want to support those businesses because I know there are those of you that need those businesses to exist, where even that small amount of sugar is going to be damaging to you. So, I do that more than I do it because it's super important for my health, if that makes sense. Um, I really do think that hopefully what most of us can get to is at least a certain degree of resilience, of health resilience, of returning our body to a state where we're insulin sensitive, where our insulin is low enough that we are a healthy human and that we don't overreact to eating a kiwi, or whatever. So, not that you have to eat those things, not that everyone has to choose those things, but that, they're not going to spell instant doom for us. And that's what my hope would be for everyone, that we could get to a healthier place. And then you could make the choices that support you physically and mentally, right? Because it doesn't matter if you're insulin sensitive and you could eat these things, but when you eat these things mentally, it doesn't go well for you, right? Then that's not a win. We should be able to find the sweet spot for ourselves where we are both mentally served and physically served. And that's going to be very uh, unique to each one of us. And, it's hard for any of us to dictate exactly what the future is going to hold for us. We just have to, roll with it, stick with it, and see what works, what ends up working long term for us, from a healthy living perspective. But I went off on a big tangent. Does anyone else have any questions? But I think that we've got to find a path forward in a way of living where we can easily maintain that way of living. And if you're, I talk to so many people who are like, oh gosh, I'm much happier when I can do this. I'm much happier when I can eat this way. I really miss eating that way. I can't eat that, right? Like, and they spend their whole life bouncing back and forth between the way they think they should eat and the way they want to eat, and they never really settle into a long-term pattern that works for them. And I don't want that for anybody either. So, I that's why I talk about bioindividuality and doing what works specifically for you and not getting stuck in any single dogma. But I think that it is equally true that for many people, the thing that really works for them is like carnivore. For others, it's hyper carnivore, which sounds weird to me. When the first time I heard the word hyper carnivore, I thought it meant really carnivore, but hyper carnivore means like maybe 70% meat and the other 30% maybe vegetable sources and produce and things like that, and other nuts and seeds and things. So more like what one would call more like along ketogenic way, although it doesn't have to be ketogenic. You could do it in a variety of ways. So, you know, we're all, I think it's the pretty rare bird of at least the Americans, and probably the Brits and the, sort of American adjacent, everyone, the European ancestry, um, who thrive on a very high carb diet. I think that would be that's the vast minority. Can you say vast minority? That's like an oxymoron. But you get what I'm saying, I think. But we got to find the slot that we fit best in at the time, and that can change over time. But I support all ways of eating that support you, right? And how do you know if the way you're eating is supporting you? You have good blood labs. You have good blood sugars. You're able to maintain a relatively healthy weight for your body. You feel energized. You feel mentally clear. You don't feel obsessed by food. You don't feel tortured by your food choices. You don't feel like you're saying one thing and doing another, right? That's what I want for everyone out there around food. So hopefully that made some sense. There's a new book coming out. I think it came out today, that I'm going to buy, The New Menopause. So if anyone else has got that, I'd love to hear what you think of it. Although if it just came out today, then you probably haven't read it yet. But what else? I could read the ingredients. So somebody freaked out once when I posted this. this here drink, because it says that it has 10 gram. Does it say that? Yes. You see the tilt and squint I'm doing without my glasses on? Because it's got allulose. So this sucker has allulose in it. And so almost all the carbs that you see on the label are from allulose. And while I don't restrict my carbs hardcore anymore, right? My diet is not based on keeping to a certain number of carbs. It's more keeping most of my food choices to certain types of foods. Um, some people freaked out when they saw that that meant this had 10 grams of total carbs. Generally speaking, I've talked about this before, but I'm very pro allulose. I think it's a good food for most people as long as sweet tastes don't trigger you, right? So I don't. So from a biological point of view, I support allulose. From a uh, food euphoria response thing, they don't. It doesn't always work. Sweet tastes don't work for all people. They work great for a lot of people. But if you are in that place where you're like, oh, if when I taste something sweet, I get really triggered by it to eat a lot, then you should know that about yourself, and then you should avoid it. But otherwise, I don't really have a problem with most people with allulose. It has some unique. See, there goes the burpees. It has some unique biological benefits. Specifically, it has a little bit of stimulation of the incretin hormones, which can be helpful actually for managing blood sugar. And it has a bit of a beneficial reaction that if you're having something with a little more carbs than usual from other sources, whether that be nuts or fruit or, a keto related sweet that has just generally more carbs, not including the allulose, but when you add allulose to that, it actually kind of blunts the blood sugar response from those carbs because of a way that allulose reacts to other carbs. So I'm not suggesting we all need to medicinally take allulose, but yeah, I really do support the use of it if you can do sweet flavors. That's where I stand with allulose. Um, does anyone have any questions? David, isn't allulose commercially made from corn? No, not. I don't think it's corn. I think you might be thinking of. See, there. I get the. I get the like. Things. I think it's made from other vegetables. It's a rare sugar, but it's basically made in a lab. It's not like fermented corn. That is erythritol. That's erythritol. Erythritol is usually made from corn. Let's look it up, shall we? How is allulose produced? Because I can't remember everything and I forget things. Oh, let's see. Well, here we go. Okay. So that what they do is they extract natural sugars from ones found in plant, which includes corn. So there you go. So what they do is they extract the sugar that may be in corn, and then they use an enzymatic conversion process making allulose. So apparently, yes, corn is used. I see. I knew that about erythritol. So I was like, oh no, that's erythritol, but it is apparently also allulose that can be made from corn, but it's not made from it's not made from corn. It's made from extracting the sugars in corn, and then essentially it's made in a lab. Um, so do what you will with it. It is not contraindicated for people. Let's look. Can you have allulose if you have a corn allergy? Let's look. Hold on. Now you get to watch me read. Well, that's not helpful. Hold on. So, yeah, I mean, I think if I had a corn allergy, I would be cautious and I would talk to your allergist. If you had a actual corn allergy. I don't know how common a corn allergy really is, but if you were actually anaphylactic reactive to corn, then I would look into that and maybe get allulose that is made with a different substrate. But it's not corn in and of itself, in my opinion, is not like a harmful thing. It's what part of the corn you're eating, in what form you're eating the corn, how big a carbohydrate injection you're getting from the corn. You can also think about it a little differently. Like, think about corn is both a vegetable and a grain, right? And so if you ate an ear of corn, that's very different than eating a lot of processed corn in terms of the quantity of corn you're getting. Sort of like eating a piece of fruit, very different than drinking a high fructose filled corn syrup filled soda. It's like whole food source, processed food source. So there's a lot that goes into there. I don't think that corn is naturally evil. It's just in what form it's coming in. Um, Deb says, I've had PTSD since I was 14. Not sure if menopause is even thing, considering I've never had a period. So if you had some type of surgery that altered your hormones, or you have just a naturally occurring, not occurring hormone difference, that altered your adult female hormone structure, um, it's going to be harder to say what's going on hormonally. You may have already gone through menopause, but essentially, we talk about menopause as the way we tend to define menopause is going one full year without having a period. So if you're somebody that hasn't menstruated your whole life, um, then that is something that you would test hormonally to see what kind of hormones you are producing. And when those hormones really dive off a cliff, that's when you'd be looking at the sort of menopausal shift. If I were somebody who has never had a period, I would probably be getting annual hormone tests, specifically to look at where my estrogen is at, also my progesterone. Those are both going to be important in terms of how we function, how we age, how we keep our heart disease risk in a lower strata than if once we lose those things. So if I were in that boat where something had occurred, whether hormonally or externally, that caused a hormonal shift, um, I would um, I would be getting regular hormone tests. Um, and do you guys? This was an interesting trivia point. Like, okay, if there are any 60-year-old couples out there, 60-year-old man, 60-year-old woman, somewhere in that neighborhood, right? The man has about 3 to 4 times as much estrogen in his body as the woman, if she's not taking estrogen, right? If she went through menopause and just living her life, the post-menopausal woman has like a third to a quarter the estrogen in her body that a man of the same age has. Is that crazy? And that's not even like him being way out of bounds high estrogen. That's kind of nuts to me, right? Because men make estrogen and they're supposed to make estrogen, but they make estrogen from converting their testosterone. So they make testosterone, the testosterone gets converted to estrogen. The estrogen is helpful for a man. It's important. You don't want to block a man's estrogen. He'll get osteoporosis as well as some other problems. So he needs some estrogen. So, but I thought that was nuts, right? given all we know about all of the amazing things that estrogen does for a woman's body when she's producing estrogen, that postmenopausally, just naturally, that is so different. Anyway, little trivia for you. Bob says they've been using RX sugar and love it. Allulose helps your own GLP-1. Yep, that's what I was saying. It helps your body secrete more incretin hormones. GLP-1 is an incretin hormone. There are two incretin hormones, the GLP-1 and the GIP, and they both are part of a combination of factors that help us manage our blood sugar. And so allulose actually ramps up in sufficient quantities. It has not been tested at low quantities, but at a high enough quantity, allulose does appear to uh, trigger secretion of these hormones, which help us maintain lower blood sugars. And that may be a part of the explanation about why allulose lowers blood sugar. And so that is uh, interesting. And so, and also it suppresses a little bit of glucagon when these hormones are stimulated. So it's a 1-2 benefit of blood sugar management because it allows a little bit of insulin to come in to lower that blood sugar in a way that is so like specific to the food you're eating that it is not, in my opinion, part of the cascade that causes hyperinsulinemia. And at the same time, the stimulation, the word I was looking for, stimulation of these hormones, they suppress glucagon. So that's the dance, right? When we make glucagon, when we secrete glucagon, I should say, it tells our liver to release more blood sugar. So Debbie says, just an interesting note. I managed to have a baby and never have a period. Wow, that's amazing. Well, I hope if you wanted to have a baby, I am super glad that that was able to happen for you. So clearly, if you were able to have a baby, you are producing sufficient quantities of estrogen and progesterone to have at least carried one child. So that would mean that you were not in menopause from early on, but at some point you will get there because you can't get pregnant if you don't make estrogen, because that is part of the the implantation process, and you can't carry a pregnancy if you don't make enough progesterone. So that means you were making plenty of those hormones along the way. Um, the lack of a period is really interesting to me. I am not a gynecological specialist, so you know, if we look at the cycle throughout a month of what goes on there, you know, being able to go your whole life never having had a period and yet be fertile enough to carry a baby to full term, that's amazing. And but at some point you will stop producing those hormones, and you probably want to know when that's happening, because well, not everyone is symptomatic for menopause. And what do I mean by symptomatic? Well, I mean most anyone who has a period that eventually goes away. But but if you've never had one, well that you don't have that. Not everyone gets hot flashes, not everyone gets the night sweats and the sleep terrors and the vaginal atrophy. That one sounds super fun. And the incontinence, you know, and the depression. Not everyone gets the anger problems. Not everyone gets the, you know, so it's like there's this whole list of problems that people might get. Um, but uh, but everyone gets the loss of bone protection. So everyone gets the increased heart disease risk. You know, all those things are so something happens to everybody's body post menopause. Does that mean every single person needs to take hormones? No, that is a personal decision for every woman to have a conversation with her doctor and decide what is right for her. But, you know, we should all be aware that just because there are no outward signs of menopause doesn't mean the internal changes aren't happening. And those internal changes, the invisible changes, are increased risk of heart disease, um, bone loss, so osteoporosis, and then things that are maybe visible but slow, like the vaginal atrophy, the urethral damage, things where that lower part of your body starts to break down in ways you don't always want it to, but it happens very slowly. And so those are things that I think we should all look at that. Debbie, goodness, I think I've had half of these symptoms in my life. Right. And so I would imagine the fact that you've never had a period would mean that you might have ovulated a few times and that coincided and you were able to have a baby, which is amazing and yay. But you may have really screwy hormone levels. And so those screwy hormone levels can happen at any time. And so, Debbie, Sue, if I were you, I would probably want to get some of those hormone tests and see, because low estrogen and for some of these things, low progesterone, but low estrogen more, depends on the symptom, causes all those things. And so, it's really important we don't have to live like that if we don't want to. And there are things we can do. It was so interesting. I was watching TV the other night. I'm just going to talk because the questions don't come. I was watching TV the other night, and a commercial came on for a vasopressin, for a drug specifically just for the symptoms of hot flashes, right? And it was to suppress that heat you get with the hot flashes. And I was like, well, that's really interesting because estrogen does it better, right, than a lot of these vasosuppressive drugs. But there's so much bad press that started happening when I was a kid around taking hormone replacement therapy that the pharmaceutical industry said, well, let's capitalize on this fear and let's start creating like drugs, not like hormone replacement, but drugs, that deal with these symptoms rather than dealing with the core issue. So it's like, but it's just a symptom, doesn't fix the core issue. Anyway, so I just was reminded of that when I saw this commercially the other night. Now, maybe there are some people that for one reason or another cannot take estrogen, which is a lot less of you than you might think. I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, I can't take estrogen because I have a family history of blood clots." There's types of estrogen that don't cause any increase in blood clots. So that's just you got to pick the right type. And a lot of doctors aren't educated about that. And so there might be a reason you need a vasopressin as opposed to taking estrogen. But I, a lot of these drugs were kind of created because a problem was created when people got falsely afraid of non-existent health problems coming from a hormone. Anyway, to the thing. I missed a question. Jujubee says, my 10-and-a-half-year-old just fit in my fat jeans with me. We had a giggle. She was like, why do you have pants this big? Apparently 2.5 years later, she has no memory of me being that big. Yep. I have a pair of pants stuffed in a drawer somewhere that, yeah, they'll fall. I have to hold them up with both hands. So that, it's always fun to put those things back on every now and again, for sure, for the funsies. All right, guys, any other questions that I've gone on my little rant about hormones? All right, well, then we can wrap it up for the day. I hope that everyone has a fabulous week. I will be back next week, and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. All right, guys, take care. Bye.